This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Today could be a very historic day for this Blue Jackets franchise, or it could just be another day in a first-round series with the series set to continue. We won't know until tonight when the Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning go head-to-head over at Nationwide Arena. Welcome to CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. The Blue Jackets taking the first three games of this series. Depending upon which team you're talking to, who's got the advantage tonight? If you talk to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they feel that they found something in the third period of the game on Sunday. They feel they can use that to exploit the Blue Jackets tonight. If you talk to the Blue Jackets, they feel like what they did in the third period was maybe back off a little bit, and that opened the door for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, again, it all depends which way you're taking your vantage point from this. It all depends on which team is talking. Somebody's going to do the talking tonight. Either Tampa is finally going to come to life, and they are finally going to get a win in this series and force it back to Tampa for a Game 5, which would be on Friday night, or the Blue Jackets are going to do something that they have never done. They are going to stand at center ice at Nationwide Arena, and they are going to celebrate a sweep of what was the best team in the regular season right here. They're going to stand right there in the middle of Nationwide Arena and celebrate that with you. And that's what the hope is. That's what the hope is. And if you think the Tampa Bay Lightning is ready to roll over, they're ready to let that happen, they want to be spectators for that, I think you're wrong. I think you're absolutely wrong. I think that the Lightning is going to at least try to bring it tonight in the first period especially. I think they're going to test their own theory. They're going to see if what they thought happened on Sunday in the third period actually happened. They're going to see if they can stretch the Blue Jackets out a little bit. They're going to see if they can utilize their speed. They're going to see if their transition game finally comes back to where it was during the regular season. They're going to attempt that. And the Blue Jackets, I think if they can just take that away in the first period, I think they can break the will of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they can break them. I think they can get them to succumb. I think they can beat them tonight because that's all they've done since taking away the transition game of the Lightning after period number one of game number one. They have just taken away their will. So they need to do it again. One more time is what they need to do. And if they can do that, and then they're going to have a break and wait to see who the next opponent is. But everybody will tell you, every player, every coach, everyone that has ever been involved in one of these series, the fourth game is the toughest game to win. So don't take anything for granted. Don't think that this is a done deal, it's a slam dunk, it's a no-brainer. It's not. There's going to be a lot of hard work that needs to be done tonight. John Tortorella started just hammering home that theme yesterday. He was already talking about a lot of work to do. Nick Foligno talked about a lot of work to do. They've already discussed it. They already know what their talking points are. You know, even hockey players, even pro athletes have talking points, right? They know. There are just certain things you can't get caught saying. You just can't give material to the other team. And they're not going to do that. And they're not going to do it in this case because it's absolutely true. If you're a team that has never, ever won a playoff series, just because you are up 3-0, the series is not over. And you cannot assume that it's going to come to you easily and it's going to happen for the very first time. Now, where do the Blue Jackets have an advantage? It's quite possible that they do have an advantage based on the way the regular season ended because they had to win. The Blue Jackets have been playing playoff hockey for almost a month, just trying to get into the postseason, trying to get the first wild card spot, not succeeding in that, having to settle for the second wild card spot, but staying ahead of Montreal and getting in. And Nick Foligno says that experience that they went through in the last couple of weeks of the regular season might be experience that they can really put to use right now.
Yeah, I think what we can take away from it is our approach that we've just gone one game at a time, no matter the magnitude of a game. I think we played games where we had to beat the team that we're playing just to keep our chances alive with the Montreal game and then, just keep climbing. So for us, we're not looking at it like that. We're looking at it's our next game to have an opportunity to continue to play hockey, and it's game 4, and that's our approach. It's been our approach, and will be for as long as we're going to go here, because it's what's going to make you successful, and we're a team that's never gotten ahead of ourselves, and we're excited about the opportunity we've given ourselves, but no, it's going to be the hardest game of the series. Go
back 3 years. Back when the Blue Jackets had their 16-game winning streak, back when they made the playoffs the first time in this trifecta run, if you will. And remember John Tortorella at the time preaching one game at a time. It's not about the game after today. It's about today's game. One game at a time. And that is a theme that he has instilled in the core group of this team and continues to preach it today. And there you just heard it. And that's why it shouldn't be hard for them to have that approach, because the guys that have been here, that's the approach that they have had for years. For years they've had this approach. One day at a time, one game at a time. This is game 4. If you win game 4, you have advanced. If you lose game 4, you get ready for game 5. It sounds so simple, but yet it is so true. And the Blue Jackets just need to have that approach tonight. Now, the Tampa Bay Lightning is going to have the same approach. Tampa Bay Lightning is saying, well, if we could just win one game, we stay alive. That gives us the opportunity to win 2 games, gives us the opportunity to win 3 games, and then 4 games. And they have no choice but to look at it like that either. But I don't know if they have been a one-game-at-a-time team throughout the last couple of years. They talk about this Tampa group, and this is the veteran group. They've been in the playoffs. They have a lot of playoff experience. This was to be their year. They thought this was it. Based on the way the regular season went, they thought that this was the year that they were going to get their due. But I don't know if they've always had that one-game-at-a-time type of mentality. This is now a franchise that has lost 5 straight playoff games. They lost 2 last year to Washington and got knocked out. They've lost the first 3 this year to the Blue Jackets and are on the verge of being knocked out. So I don't know if they have that same type of game-by-game mentality that the Blue Jackets do. And it would be hard to have that during their regular season, quite frankly, because they just rolled over everybody. Remember, after Game 1, I was telling you that the Tampa Bay Lightning had not lost 2 games in a row since November. And ironically, those 2 games were against Buffalo and Ottawa. Now, November, Buffalo and Ottawa was a little bit different than the Buffalo and Ottawa by the beginning of April. But they had only lost 2 games in a row one time. I was talking to you about that after game number 1. And then the Blue Jackets win game 2. So, okay, this is the first time since November. They had not lost 3 in a row throughout the regular season. This is the first time all year, and what a terrible time to lose 3 in a row. Absolutely terrible for them. Now, Tampa is going to get their best player back in the lineup tonight, and that is Nikita Kucherov. He missed Game 3. He was suspended by the league for the hit that he put on Marcus Nudavara. He is back tonight. So that will give them a sniper that has 0 points in the first 2 games. But a sniper nonetheless. He had 128 points during the regular season. You still have to respect that, no doubt. He's a very good shooter. He's great with a one-timer. If they get him set up in the circle, he's dangerous. So he's back for them tonight. But it looks like Victor Hedman will not play again tonight. He did not skate yesterday. John Cooper says he's doubtful for tonight. And it looks as though the Blue Jackets will not have to deal with the top defenseman of the Lightning for a second straight game. Which really doesn't matter in this series because they dealt with him for the first 2 games and he wasn't very good. And they took advantage of him. But he did not play in Game 3. He will not play tonight in Game 4, apparently. So that is an advantage. There's no question. When a team is missing a major piece, you have got to take advantage of that. The Blue Jackets did that on Sunday with both Kucherov and Hedman out. They took advantage. They need to do it again tonight. They need to make sure that Nikita Kucherov continues to be a non-factor in this series. They need to make sure Braden Point continues to be a non-factor. They need to make sure Steven Stamkos continues to be a non-factor. And they only have to do it one more time. Some other things. Yesterday I was listening to a lot of the Tampa Bay programming they have. They have their own radio channel, so it's very easy to go and get their stuff. But anyway, I was listening to that, and they were saying, well, Vasilevsky is now locked in. First 2 games might have been a little shaky. Now he is all locked in. Is he? He made some good saves the other night, don't get me wrong. But is he completely locked in? Can the Blue Jackets continue to take advantage of and exploit the blocker side on Andrei Vasilevsky? I think they can. Not only do I think they can, I think they will. I'm not going to guarantee you a win or anything like that tonight. I'm not that dumb. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. But I will tell you this. The Blue Jackets have got to feel like they can get it done tonight. They have got to be confident. They have got to have swagger. And they have it. And they've had it for 3 games. They just need to have it one more time. Coming up a little bit later on the show, we'll hear from Dave Mishkin. He is the radio voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But next, I'm going to get together with Dan Rosen from NHL.com as we continue with CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. Game 4 of this first-round best-of-7 playoff series tonight at Nationwide Arena. Game gets underway at 7 o'clock. Our pregame coverage will begin at 6 o'clock tonight. All of the festivities start at 4 o'clock with a plaza party right outside of Nationwide Arena this evening. You don't have to have a ticket to be a part of the plaza party. Come out, hang out, and get ready for the Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, when you have a series of this magnitude, you get a lot of the national people that come in, writers, broadcasters, all that stuff. And Dan Rosen, who covers the NHL on NHL.com and does a lot of work on the NHL Network, is in town to watch the Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's been here throughout the entire series, and yesterday I had a chance to catch up and talk with Dan. Dan, when you came to cover this series, could you have imagined that 3 games in, it would be where it is right now with the Blue Jackets having a chance to knock out not just the President's Trophy winners, but a team that won 62 games during the regular season and tied an NHL record?
No. If I would have thought it would be 3-0, I thought it would be the other way, and I'm not alone in that thinking. But hindsight being what it is, the Blue Jackets came into this playoffs riding, they went 7 out of 8, right? So they were playing well. They had to play playoff hockey before there was playoff hockey. And the level of intensity does go up in Game 1 from even the day that you're trying to clinch. It does go up. There's no question. But you have to be in that mode. And they've been in that mode for 2 to 3 weeks coming in, whereas Tampa was playing well and winning games, but they clinched a playoff berth on March 9th. I think they locked up the President's Trophy on March 18th. So even though they were winning, it wasn't that level of intensity and that level of commitment necessarily to a playoff-style game, whereas the Blue Jackets were developing that over the course of the last 2 weeks of the season, and now we're seeing it. So it was a nightmare first period for them in Game 1, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, here we go. This is going to be a quick series, obviously. And to their credit, they stuck with it. They had the resiliency that they had to show all year, and look at what happened since. And they've now, except for the first period in Game 1 and maybe 10 or 12 minutes in the third period in Game 3, they have completely taken Tampa out of their game. And it's the first team to do it all year. But, again, hindsight being what it is, they were playing a playoff brand of hockey, whereas Tampa wasn't. And it's not that easy to flip that switch.
And in addition to that, John Tortorella said right from day one, and he was kind of off to the side, quiet about it from the time that the Blue Jackets ended the regular season. He said, we have a plan to play that team. Yeah. Well, of course, every coach is going to say that they have a plan to play that team, but he obviously did. He had a plan. It wasn't the plan they used during the regular season because all of those games were in Tampa's favor by a bunch. But, again, we know the difference between regular season and postseason. I don't know where he went to research the plan, but he got a good plan. And then on the other side, coach can have the best plan in the world. If the players don't buy into it and if they don't play it, it doesn't matter, right?
100%. And your plan doesn't work if the goaltender doesn't play well, right? And so he's played well since the first period of Game 1. That save he made on Kucherov 26 seconds into the second period of Game 1, that was the series-changing save right now because, A, that's a 4-0 game if he doesn't make that save, and B, maybe Bob's pulled if he doesn't make that save. And now the whole narrative is about Bobrovsky can't win in the playoffs still, right? Well, he makes that save, plus the one on Stamkos at the end of the second period of Game 1, and he has been terrific ever since. 69 saves on 71 shots since that time, since the end of the first period of Game 1. And so the plan doesn't work if the goaltender doesn't play well. He's playing well, and that is allowing them to play with the structure and the confidence that they have through the middle of the ice. You saw it last night. You saw it in Game 3. Tampa tried for 2.5 periods, or 2 periods at least, to make plays through the middle of the ice, like they always do. They weren't there. There's no plays for them to make in the middle of the ice, through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, when the Blue Jackets are playing with their defensive structure. And I love the attitude that Columbus has had, too. It's a level of focus and concentration. They call it humble, focused, confident. That's the words I keep hearing. And, if you're in this situation, you're 1 win away from pulling off maybe the biggest upset in maybe NHL history because of how you're doing it, and you still maintain that level of focus. I think it's remarkable to do.
Talking with Dan Rosen from NHL.com. He's been following this series through all 3 games. The Tampa Bay Lightning, this team is a veteran team. They were built – I saw them in the American Hockey League when they were competing for they were in the Calder Cup Championship back-to-back years. They won at one time with Norfolk. They lost it in Syracuse. They continually have good teams in the American Hockey League. They are a player factory. They're doing what is tough to do in the salary cap era, obviously. But here they are in this group, and not just the Steven Stamkos, but Tyler Johnson and the Andre Palats and the Alex Killorns, all those guys that have come up through the system. Does it surprise you that so many of them have been so ineffective, or they've been quieted so easily by the Blue Jackets?
It does surprise me because I thought they learned a lesson last year when they lost Games 6 and 7 against Washington, and they were quieted by Washington because they were stubborn and they wouldn't stop trying to play the style of hockey that has made them so successful, and at least adapt. You want them to play the style of hockey that's made them successful, but at times you do have to adapt to a game, to the playoff style, to the different intensity, to the structure another team's playing with, and make it just simpler if need be, or just adapting to the way the game is being played at that moment and understanding you can't just go and score 6 or 7 every game. I thought they learned that lesson against Washington. Then they rolled through this season, and John Cooper's right. Everything came easy to this team this year. They earned it. They made it look easy, and then at the end it all did come easy, and they didn't face any adversity. And now they're back in it, and it seems like they didn't learn anything from last year. They're still stubborn, right? There's still that swagger about them that they think they could just get it done when the other team is outplaying them at this point. And that's changed now, but it didn't change after Game 2, and that was a big problem because if they win Game 3, they're right back in it. If they win it, however, if it's 2-1 and ugly, if it's 5-1 and pretty, however they win it, they're right back in it. But they couldn't get it done, and they didn't look like they had a plan to get a win in Game 2 in the first 2 periods. It finally started to come out in the third period, but they didn't learn their lessons after the first 2 games. They didn't learn their lesson after Game 1. They didn't learn their lesson after Game 2. They didn't learn their lesson after Game 6 and 7 against Washington last year. So there's a stubbornness to this team that until they get over that, they're not going to win in the playoffs. And it reminds me of Washington, for years couldn't get over it, couldn't get over the hump because they were stubborn, finally did. Pittsburgh, they won in 2009, but then they struggled and they couldn't find their way, and then they finally did. I'm not saying Tampa never will, but this is a bit shocking that they didn't learn it.
When you talk about those teams, for Washington, it took a Barry Trotz to come in there and get some of those offensive players to buy into playing defense. For Pittsburgh, it took Mike Sullivan, who was a protege of John Tortorella, to come in there and kind of set things straight and get that team to perform. You've known John Tortorella for a long time, and I know that he's the guy that doesn't want to make it about him. Let me rephrase. When he makes it about him, it's for a purpose, right? To take the focus off his team. But he doesn't want it to be about him. But here's a guy that just a couple of years ago was out of the game. The Blue Jackets brought him back in. Every year, well, in the first 2 years I think he was here, early in the year people would say, who will be the first coach fired? It'll be John Tortorella. Has this guy reinvented himself, or has he just been the same guy all around and he's got a team that he can work with?
He's got a team he can work with. He has not reinvented the way he coaches. He has not reinvented the way he goes about his business. He's I think he's better with the media. I think he's more giving with the media, willing to talk more and engage in that level of discussion with the media that he didn't have towards the end of his time with the Rangers, for sure, and didn't have really at all, I think, in his time in Vancouver. But he's always been this way. It's just that, I don't know if it was tightening up or just, getting frustrated, whatever it was. So that's changed, and I think it's helped the discourse of, the talk about the team, and how people cover the team, which helps, the fan perspective of the team. But no, and the way he coaches, it's still a hard structure. It's still cover the middle of the ice. It's still block shots. It's still, all about the team, no dynamic, they have a dynamic scorer in Panarin, but you better play D, you better Duchesne, you better play D. There is all of that still with John Tortorella. So I don't think he's reinvented himself. I think he's got a team, like you said, that can buy into what he wants. I was thinking about this today, how he was talking about, we need to find our way. This organization needs to find its way, and we're in the process of doing that. And we've got guys who have had to buy in. They may have had little runs here and there with other teams, or didn't have as much success with this team, and they needed to buy in. It reminds me of his time with Tampa. It really, the whole thing reminds me of his time with Tampa, with Marty St. Louis and Dan Boyle and Vinny Lecavalier and Nikolai Hobbybull and then the veteran and Dave Andrzejczuk, and the idea of that organization, younger than this one, but hadn't really found any level of success and needed to have some of that, needed to find its way. And that's really what's happening here. It's just taking a little longer, I guess, in Columbus.
All right, one last thing for you, actually kind of a two-part thing. Number one, do the Blue Jackets have to sweep this series for it to be the magnificent story that it is already turning into being? Or can they afford to, go beyond a Game 4? And the other thing is, how do you see this Game 4 playing out?
I think if they win the series, it's still a magnificent accomplishment considering what happened in the regular season. I think the story is historic if they sweep in 4 games. So either way, however they're able to win the series, that's an accomplishment to beat this team the way they're, anybody beating this team 4 out of 7 is an accomplishment, especially 4 out of 4. In terms of Game 4, I really wonder, did the Lightning actually find something in the third period of Game 3? And if they did, can they take it with them into the first period of Game 4? I think the whole game changes if Tampa scores the first goal. Because it takes a little bit of the stress away. It takes a little bit of the pressure off, and then maybe it forces them to take Columbus a little bit out of its game. And if Tampa's so talented, if they can take a team a little bit out of its game, they can run away with a game. But I also love the way the Blue Jackets are looking at it. We saw things in that third period that we've got to correct, and that's the focus now. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, that start of Game 4. If Tampa's able to find that way and get a 1-0 lead, my guess is this series goes back to Tampa. If they can't reinvent what they did in the third period of Game 3 and Columbus gets a 1-0 lead, it could be lights out.
I lied because you made me think of one more thing. You go all over the league. You spend a lot of time in Madison Square Garden, at the Coliseum, those New York area teams. The atmosphere for Game 3 here in Columbus, what was it like for you in the building?
Oh, it was awesome. It was phenomenal. I loved the chants, the noise, the cannon, obviously. It was a terrific playoff atmosphere. I mean, it's hard to compare decibels or whatever it may be, but I love the playoff atmospheres in Washington. Obviously, Nassau Coliseum has been great. Vegas is terrific. I mean, Montreal is out of this world. Madison Square Garden's great. I mean, the playoff atmosphere here last night ranked up with those playoff atmospheres. If those fans can bring it again like they did, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah. Dan, thank you so much, and hopefully this will go the way that I want it to go, and the Blue Jackets want it to go, and we'll see you around here for a long time.
All right, appreciate it. I'll be here if they win.
That is Dan Rosen. He writes for NHL.com. You see him a lot on the NHL Network, and he is in town covering this series. Coming up next, we'll hear from Dave Mishkin. He's the radio voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're on the ropes, and the Blue Jackets will try to knock them out tonight. You're listening to CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union. Welcome back to CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union. Let me tell you a little something about Tel Ohio Credit Union, if I may. Yeah, I may. I can. I will. Here's what it is. The Ohio Credit Union, their members are the most important people to them. They've been taking care of their members. They've been putting them above everybody else. They have put people over profits. They've done it since 1934. Doing something above and beyond is just a way of life for Ohio Credit Union. That's the way they do business. And they could do business for you if you become a member of Ohio Credit Union. How can you do that? Well, it's very easy. Go to their website, telhio.org. It'll tell you why you should become a member. It'll tell you how you can become a member. It will tell you the benefits that you will get as a member of Ohio Credit Union. It is all right there in front of you. If you can't find something, there's a live chat option that you can click on, and somebody will pop up on the screen to help you with that. Or if you're driving around town, you can stop by any local branch of Ohio Credit Union and talk to an actual person. Ohio Credit Union is open to everyone in central and southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. All right, we're having some problems getting a hold of Dave Mishkin. Maybe he slept in. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to talk. His team's down 3-0. Maybe he doesn't want to talk this morning. Anyway, if we get Dave, I will get him on. In the meantime, let's continue to talk about the Blue Jackets and what they have to do. Now, what happened to the Blue Jackets in the third period the other night? I mean, did they back off? Did Tampa turn it up? What happened? Why did the Tampa Bay Lightning all of a sudden have great success? They had 17 shots in the third period of that game. And even at that, quite frankly, they had one goal. That's all they had. But what happened in period 3? Is it something the Lightning can grab onto and take into tonight? Or is it a simple adjustment for the Blue Jackets? Here's Josh Anderson on that.
Yeah, I think it's just, we'll watch video to see what we have to work on. But I think that they did a good job of, pushing F1 back a little bit to open up the neutral zone. So once we get that figured out, I think we'll be fine.
So F1, that is the first forechecker. That's the first guy in, right? And if that guy's in there creating havoc, then the team has to make adjustments in their defensive zone. If they push that guy back, and sometimes, now he didn't say this, this is me speaking, sometimes that guy drops back on his own because everything's in control. Hey, maybe I can back up and help these guys a little bit. I don't need to be as aggressive, but when that happens, then that gives them more room, and then they're able to get more speed. And that's kind of what happened. So that's what he's talking about when he says pushback F1. So Josh Anderson obviously thinks that it is a simple adjustment that the Blue Jackets have to make, and they can make it, and they will make it tonight as they try to sweep this series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. All right, going to come back and wrap up today's edition of CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union, right after this. Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, Game 4 of their best-of-7 series. For the Blue Jackets, it's win and move on, or lose and go back to Tampa. Right now I'm going to talk with Dave Mishkin, the radio voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning. This interview brought to you by your Greater Columbus Kia dealers and the new 2019 Kia Sorento. Conquer your mountain. Dave, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. See, when we get the right number, then we're able to get a hold of you. Sorry about that. Hey,
I was not responsible for passing along the wrong number.
I was told you're going out for a run. Is that true, or did you just make it up to sound like you're really into things?
No, I am going, but I will do this interview first. So I'm glad that we
Can you do this
and
run at the same time? Because I think that would be great radio, quite frankly.
You know, it's funny you asked, not to get off topic. I actually did a pregame interview once with an assistant coach who was on a stationary bike. He wasn't stationary. The bike was. I'm like, are you sure you really want to do this? He's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was told never do that again.
Yeah, it usually only takes once for those things. Hey, also, before we start, I want to ask you, I want to take you back to the beginning of your pro hockey career, and I want to ask you if you remember a day, I'd say it was probably late summer 1993. You were working for the Johnstown Chiefs in the East Coast Hockey League, and you had to go to the Johnstown Galleria Mall and take this young, scrawny kid from Somerset, Pennsylvania, to audition for the Chiefs mascot. You remember that day?
Well, I remember that, certainly, Bob. I also remember thinking, like, how do you interview somebody for a mascot job? And so, well, why don't I just take the mascot to a public area and see how the mascot interacts with people? And so that's what we did, and you knocked it out of the park. being the start of a career. That was
it did, you know,
that was a rather unusual route to the Blue Jackets radio booth.
That's right. It's such a weird story. It's like when people ask me, how did you get your start? I said, I'll tell you, but you're probably not going this way. I just want to warn you. You're probably not. But, yeah, and that, thankfully that blossomed into actually taking the job that you had a couple of years later, moving on to the American Hockey League and catching up with you when you were in Hershey at the time. Then you went to Tampa, and I wind up here. So it's so funny how life works, isn't it?
Yeah, but, I mean, it's great that so many broadcasters, especially on the radio side, have come up the ranks together. I mean, it's no different really than for a lot of players and coaches, managers even, the opportunity up, you gain experience at the minor league level. And whether it's, you or Chris Kerber, or Dave Gosher, or John Weideman, I mean, all around the league, so many of us have known each other for decades. And I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking with Dave Mishkin. He's the radio voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Dave, let's get to this series. What the heck has happened to the Lightning? How stunned is this team based on what's gone on the first three games?
Well, they're stunned. I think there's no question about it. Let me just say broad strokes. Columbus has outplayed the Lightning. I don't think I'm stating anything obvious here, but I think it needs to be stated up front. Columbus has been the better team in the series. Columbus is deserving of being up 3-0. No team plays in a vacuum, right? Like there's always another team out on the ice. So I think what you have are, what's one team doing, what's the other team doing, let's put it in a blender, and then you get the result. So what Columbus has done very well, particularly from the start of Game 2, is defend. Defend through the neutral zone, defend in their own end, play without the puck. The number of turnovers has been very, very low. So that has not really fueled the Lightning's attack. And that's true for any team. I mean, I think that talk to any coach, they're going to say we need to limit turnovers because if we don't have good puck management, the other team is going to capitalize on that. We saw that in Game 1. The Lightning had puck management issues that, fed some of the Columbus attack. So I think high marks to the Blue Jackets, how well they have played defensively in front of Bobrovsky, particularly in Games 2 and 3. But on the Lightning side, they just have not done enough to counter that. And you might say, well, it's a system. I believe in systems, but I also believe in how you execute. So, for Columbus, they could say, we're going to play this, this structured system, and this is the way we need to play it. But you actually have to go out and do it, right? You need to execute the game plan. And I think the Lightning have not executed as well as they've needed to. They haven't moved their feet. They haven't put pucks in areas where they can go get it. They haven't necessarily won battles. Period. Game 3, the Lightning were, from their standpoint, finally starting to get some penetration, feel a little bit uncomfortable in the defensive zone. It's not like either team all of a sudden changed its strategy. I mean, to me, that was just execution. I didn't think Columbus's play dipped necessarily. I think the Lightning's play elevated. And I think that's what they're going to have to, try and do moving forward, certainly, because from the Lightning's perspective, they certainly cannot expect that Columbus's play is going to dip, and the Blue Jackets have shown no indication that their play is going to dip. So I think the Lightning have to elevate. They have to use their strengths, speed, skill, playmaking, quick puck movement, and try and play to their standard, or else they're going to have a long off season, that's for sure.
That is Dave Mishkin. He is the radio voice of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Blue Jackets and the Lightning going head-to-head tonight, 7 o'clock at Nationwide Arena. Here's a tip for you, okay? It could be a sweep. And when there is a sweep possible, people like to bring brooms to the game. Listen, they're not going to let you in with a broom. I'm just telling you. Unless there's some way you can conceal your broom, and I don't even know how you're going to do that if you're going to do it, okay? I don't want to know. Don't tell me. But you're not going to be allowed to bring a broom into the arena tonight. Now, if it were me, I would sell the brooms inside the gates once the arena opened, but that's just me. I'm just kidding. You just can't do that. So don't try to bring a broom. I want to give you that warning right off the bat, okay? Just giving you the heads up on that. Game time, 7 o'clock. It all starts with the Plaza Party presented by Nationwide, 4 o'clock, right outside of Nationwide Arena. There will be entertainment. There's going to be a ton of people there. You know there is. Today is a much nicer day than Sunday was. The weather was a factor in the canceling of that Plaza Party on Sunday. Today is a much nicer day. So come out starting at 4 o'clock. Enjoy some camaraderie. Enjoy some entertainment, and then get ready to enter Nationwide Arena for the Blue Jackets and the Lightning tonight. Our pregame coverage will start at 6 o'clock on the Blue Jackets radio network, and that includes the flagship station 97.1 The Fan in Columbus. Also get the game on your phone using the Blue Jackets app or the TuneIn app. You can get it on your computer or laptop by going to BlueJackets.com, and we will be on SiriusXM satellite radio tonight on Channel 219 for what could be a historic night in Columbus. No President's Trophy winning team has ever been swept out of the first round of the playoffs. The Lightning are in the position where it could happen to them. The Blue Jackets have to make it happen tonight. But guess what? If they don't, they'll just get on a plane tomorrow and go to Tampa and try to win the series there. But tonight, the focus is going to be on getting to round 2. Blue Jackets and the Lightning at 7 o'clock. Until then, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.